Hey, good morning to all of those of you who are just now getting up, and good night to all those of you who are hitting the rack. Hey, everybody dance. Sing about some old times back on a reservation. So it's great to see you, friends. It is Q&A Wednesday. Man, I love our Wednesdays. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel, man. It's awesome to have you here. So Q&A is a little bit different format. It's like a Q&A format. Every other video, I will leave a response straight to you. No matter what it is, I'm going to type in a response on any of the videos. Speaking of which, on Friday, in like 2 days, I got a video coming out. Make sure you watch it. It's be another easy short giveaway. But on Wednesdays, it's more of an open dialogue between us. So if you leave a response on this video, not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, for that particular Q&A Wednesday, I'm gonna call you out, and I'm gonna have a conversation with you. And you know, it's just a way to stay authentic in the conversation and the dialogue, because I do, you know, I appreciate all of the comments and the remarks that y'all leave. And it could be serious, it could be ridiculous, it could be whatever you want. If you leave something here, if you have a channel that needs to be called out, or if you have something that's going on in your life that needs more attention, you know, we'll get to that. And so I'm gonna breeze through a few comments starting from 2 weeks ago, and then we'll go to last week, and then we'll spend some time talking about a question from 2 weeks ago. All right, so let's dig into this thing. First thing first. Mark Townsley, and you got the same taste in covers, same color flag, and yours has "In God We Trust" on the back. Man, that's awesome, Mark. I think great minds think alike. If I can learn how to talk, it is early in the morning. No, brother, man, that's awesome. I'm thinking, and I love that you have "In God We Trust" on the back, man. And I've had a lot of conversations with so many of you all on our faith, and maybe next Wednesday that'll be a point of discussion. So that's great. That's awesome. Guy Perry says, thank you, and all of our servicemen and women. You know, brother, thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, and there's so many people, so many of you all who are subscribers, who are watching, or who are dialoguing with us, who are veterans, man, and we all thank you for your service, whether you're current, former, or in the case of our winner last week, right, Jacob, he's getting ready to be a soldier, so that's awesome. He says he's proud to have our freedom, absolutely, and we're all in this together. You got it, bud. Skating preparedness rights, where did you live during your 7 years? And I'll get to you at the end, brother. And if you haven't checked out his channel, make sure you do that. John says, sounds like we're old school, one team, one fight. Man, you got that right. But Joe says he's never met a first sergeant that he didn't like. I have. I sure have. But, you know, it wasn't the... It wasn't the hard asses that I didn't care for, at least not so much. I'll leave that one there. Dig the videos, man. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Modest Adventures says, man, he eats when he's hungry, man. Absolutely. It feels right. It tastes good. It works for me. Michelle writes, I missed you live, and this is a question. I'm actually question for me. It's more of a question for you all. Would a live Q&A format be something that we do, kind of like a little virtual subscriber meetup, if you will? If it is, make sure you leave a comment down below. Of course, I am on the West Coast, on Pacific time zone right now. It's getting late. It's 5 a.m. So this would probably be the time that I can carve out to do this. But if it is something that y'all guys are interested in, let me know, man, and I'll figure something out. Jason Mashburn, you had the first comment a couple weeks ago. If this is your first time here, you notice that Stoker enjoys getting up awful early, and I do. I don't know that I enjoy getting up early, but I do get up early. All right, that's that week. Let's get into last week, which was on Survival Kit Essentials. And we'll start down here at the bottom this time. Pete Robb, congrats, giving congratulations to future soldier, man. That's awesome. Joe appreciated talking about self-defense. You know, it's not talked about often. And I know I didn't do it justice. You're just kind of a conversation dialoguer. Patrick, and Patrick is a person I would love to bring to your attention. Of course, he's trying to make everybody jealous with Gucci gear. I don't have most of that stuff. But he said I would make a great Dread Pirate Roberts, man, and I that's awesome. Thank you so much. That's one of the best compliments I've ever received. And I have the hair for Dread Pirate Roberts right now because all the barbershops are closed, and my hair is so far out of regs, it is crazy. But these are the times that we live in. So Patrick lives down in Central America, and he's an American who lives and works down there. And he, like everybody else, is seeing a nation that is grappling with this pandemic. And a lot of Americans have left. You know, the embassy is kind of almost shut down, but it's working extremely minimal manning down there. And he doesn't have a lot of support. He's trying to reach out to a lot of locals and a lot of Americans who are down there to provide assistance, but he's having some difficulties in being able to get out to see them. And all he's trying to do, you know, is bring some first aid and some humanitarian assistance. So if you could, you know, keep Patrick in your thoughts and prayers. I know there's not a whole heck of a lot that we can do from here for him, but I know he would appreciate it, so appreciate you. Pete says he was thinking a bear spray for self-defense, man. That's a great one. And a lot of hikers will use bear spray and carry that in their person. Work on people and animals, absolutely. I mean, single use, some of them. You can also use some pepper spray. Austin House says, thank you, and man, I thank you. Carl had quite a bit here, and this is what he leaves home with. And I'd be curious to know what you all leave home with. You know, what are your everyday carry items that you carry in the back of your car or your truck? So he says he always has a water source with him. He prefers a Camelback, and he takes his Sawyer Mini water filter with him. He says in his bag he's got a first aid kit, a signal mirror, a tarp, fire starter. He prefers to use cotton balls with alcohol. I like cotton balls with melted wax in them, and then having some aluminum foil around them. And but either way, man, they work really good. He uses his K-bar, has a pistol, also has a lightweight tent, carries his lighter, Gore-Tex jacket and pants, and he says he also broke out his Lensatic compass and protractor. Man, that's awesome. And he said he hadn't used those since his time in the Marine Corps. And brought him back up to speed, man. I appreciate you, Carl. And it's really good depth and value in the conversation with your comments. So thank you for that as well. And so Alan says he has his belt knife, his Swiss Army knife, or a traditional two-blade pocket knife is what to carry. And prefers ferro rod, matches. You've got military poncho, military canteen and cup. And having a traditional canteen cup is awesome because you can put it on an open fire, right? Because it's single walled. He prefers his headlamp, and that's why I want you to pay attention to Friday's video so you can get your own headlamp for free. Having some extra batteries, and I'm going to tag on that. As much as you can, have everything that you use that's electronic, use all of the same batteries. So when you have extra batteries, they'll work in anything that you got. Lighter, a bank line, or 550 cord, absolutely, man. And a good quality space blanket, small first aid kit. take care of him in most survival situations. Man, that's awesome. So here we go. So the question was, what did I do during my break in service? And I knew this was going to be a little bit more of a conversation piece, so I kind of left this one for the end. So I did get out of the Marine Corps in 2003, at least that's when my DD 214 says. But I actually got out in 2002, just had a lot of terminal leave. So I moved to Alabama, and it was just north of Montgomery, in a small town called Millbrook, and didn't have a whole lot of plans at the time. I had 2 kids, and so we moved in with my in-laws for a short spell, and I looked for work. And that was mistake number 1, was not having a job while I already had a job. And so I probably went, a little bit of time just looking for some kind of work, just anything to help put some food on the table, help my in-laws pay their rent and things of this nature. So, man, I was hustling and bustling, man. The economy wasn't phenomenal yet, and so I ended up cutting some grass down at the church that we started to go to, just to have something to do. And while I was there, they turned me on to this guy who was working siding. First name was Vic, former Marine. Sent me down there, and I went down and I talked to Vic, and Vic said, unfortunately, he wanted to take me on, but he just didn't have the availability or the workload to do so. But he sent me down to see John Clark with Imperial Manufacturing. And so I went down there, and John hired me as a salesman. He was owned and ran a small manufacturing company in town, doing cast aluminum mailboxes and street signs, of all things. So I started off working there, minimum wage. It kind of sucked, but one thing led to another. And eventually I was the quality assurance manager and the plant manager. And from there, man, I went out to India, and it was a really good visit. And things were going really pretty good, and I enjoyed it. Really good family, small-owned business, and had absolutely no problems with any of them. But I kind of came across through a friend at the small church we were going to, whose boyfriend was running a company down in Montgomery and needed some assistance. And they, of all things, were making trains. So I went down to see these guys, and they didn't know too much about they knew what they were doing when it came to restoring trains, old rail cars, right? So like old street cars and all the meticulous woodwork that it took to bring something back to life, and then put it into operation, whether it was going as a diner car or a street car. But then they had this job that they were working on, and they were building cars from the ground up. So they were building the trucks. They're all self-propelled. So they were trying to work with a manufacturer for the propulsion system, and they just didn't know what they were doing. And it seemed like they had bitten off more than what they could chew. And so I dropped them an offer. It's like, hey man, if you want me to come down, if you want me to leave my job, this is what it's going to take. They said no. And then about a month later, they said, come on, please. So I did. I went down and just started doing some basic things like building jigs for the walls and things of that nature. But our customer came up and discovered something that I didn't even know, and that was that the owners were robbing Peter to pay Paul. So they were using current job money. They were using our new customers' money to pay for old customers' work. And that's because that they had done whatever they did with their money. Really good people, though. I mean, I enjoyed who they were. But Mr. Armando from Peru said, man, you're going to walk away. And he wanted to put him in jail. And I told him, I said, look, I had no idea what these guys are doing. Why don't you just let me finish out this work for you? And he agreed. So I ended up getting the entire company. and started building trains, of all things. Absolutely ridiculous. So I went down to Peru a couple times, and our customer was fighting a monopoly down in Peru. So these cars were to take passengers from Cusco to Machu Picchu. And so I got in a couple cars down there, and during my second visit down there, they were explaining what their issues were going to be fighting this monopoly. Mind you, all at the same time, I'm quoting some other new work for some trains in Oman and some other stuff. I'm also working on some other cars as well, trying to finish those up. But they said that they were going to have to put a hold on the production. Now, when I had priced out to finish the work, I had put the majority of the profit on the back end of the cars. I was supposed to do like 12 cars for them, which in and of itself probably would have been a retirement job. So I was a little, holy macaronis, what do we do now? And I almost tried to work out a deal to move down to Peru. That would have been interesting, just to finish the job. You know, it was just scrambling in my head. You know, what do we do? And it was never really a huge item to consider. But so I did start to finish up some of the other projects that we had. Did some other odd and end work around town, and started let my employees go, and it got down to just me and Bob Salati. And time came when I had to tell him that he needed to go find another job, and he was a superb craftsman. So one day, I'm driving around with the wife, and by this time we have our third kid, Amber. And I look at her and say, what would it look like if we went back into the service? I mean, we got to do something. By this point, I even went back to work for Imperial Manufacturing, because I needed something. And we never once considered, going back in the service after I'd gotten out. And something clicked, and like, you know what? I think this might be the right thing to do. So I went down to the MEP station, or to the recruiter station, and went down to MEPS, of course, and the rest is history. Here I am, and that was late 2009 is when we started working the deal, and then in February 2010 is when we came back in. So I know that's a long story, short, Austin, but that's what I did during my break in service. I worked as a plant manager and a quality assurance manager for a few years, and then I owned and operated my own manufacturing company, building and restoring self-propelled rail cars. And there's a lot of more ins and outs in there. But I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed this time with you. Leave some comments down below, and we will keep this conversation rolling. And hey, if you want to get stoked, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date on some future content. And until then, we'll see you.